In the world of boxing, few names are as iconic and polarizing as Mike Tyson. Known for his ferocious power and unpredictable behavior, Tyson's legacy is etched in the annals of combat sports history. But what if I told you that there was a moment in his career where he faced a fighter who, despite not having the same fame or physical prowess, had the mental edge to possibly change Tyson's path? Picture this: a seasoned boxer, not the youngest or the strongest, but someone with the kind of cunning and strategy that could outthink his opponents. That fighter was Billy Graham. Tyson's rise to dominance was a whirlwind lightning-fast knockouts, a devastating left hook, and an undefeated record that left even the most experienced fighters trembling. But by the late 1980s, Tyson was in a phase of his career where every fight seemed like a mere formality. He was the undisputed heavyweight champion, seemingly unstoppable, until one man caught his attention. Billy Graham, an underdog by all measures, wasn't about to let Tyson's dominance define their match. Graham wasn't a typical boxer. He didn't rely on raw power, and he certainly wasn't built like Tyson. Instead, he used his intellect, his years of experience, and a deep understanding of Tyson's weaknesses to craft a game plan that would challenge the heavyweight champ in ways few had before. The idea that a fighter like Graham could take on Tyson seemed almost laughable at first. After all, Tyson was a force of nature, a monster in the ring, who struck fear into anyone who dared step into the squared circle with him. But the more you looked at Graham, the more you realized he wasn't interested in playing Tyson's game. The tension in this matchup was palpable. Tyson, with his explosive style and raw athleticism, and Graham, with his strategic brilliance and calm demeanor, set the stage for a fight that would be about more than just physical strength. This was a battle of minds, a test of who could outsmart the other, who could dictate the pace, and who could impose their will without falling into the trap set by the other. Graham was fully aware of Tyson's psychological vulnerabilities, and this gave him an edge in ways that Tyson's previous opponents hadn't been able to exploit. As the fight drew closer, the whispers of doubt began to grow. Could Tyson maintain his status as an untouchable champion? Was he truly invincible, or had he become too reliant on his brute force, ignoring the cerebral aspects of boxing? The sports world, at the time, was buzzing with anticipation. Some said it was just another paycheck for Tyson. Others, however, saw this as the perfect storm, an underdog who had studied Tyson's every move, his every flaw, and was ready to deliver the shock of the century. But as we get closer to the moment of truth, things take an unexpected turn. Tyson was known for his explosive starts, overwhelming his opponents from the first bell. Would Billy Graham's strategy even have a chance against Tyson's early onslaught? Could he withstand the barrage of punches Tyson was sure to throw? Tyson's fans believed this was going to be just another knockout. Yet Graham's supporters, the ones who believed in the tactical brilliance of the older fighter, had another story in mind. It was clear that this was not going to be a conventional fight. Tyson's ferocity and Graham's precision created an electric atmosphere in the weeks leading up to the bout. The media coverage intensified, and the stakes seemed higher than ever. People began to question whether Tyson, despite all his success, had been overlooking the mental game, focusing only on his physical dominance. And Graham, on the other hand, had been quietly preparing, studying every minute detail, knowing that this was the one chance to take down a titan. As we now approach the arena, the night of the fight, the crowd is packed to the brim with anticipation. Fans on both sides are shouting, some convinced Tyson will crush Graham in a matter of minutes, others hoping for the shock of a lifetime. What will happen when the bell rings? Will Graham's strategy be enough to take down the juggernaut Tyson, or will the champion's power prove too much? The tension in the air is thick, and the first punch could decide everything. But just before the bell rings, something unusual happens. Tyson, who has been known for his explosive starts, begins to show signs of hesitation. Could it be nerves? Could Graham's mind games already be taking effect? What's going through Tyson's head as he steps into the ring with a man who just might be his greatest challenge yet? The seconds tick by, and the audience holds its breath. The moment of truth is upon us, and it's all about to unfold. Stay tuned, because this fight, as you'll soon see, is not just about who can throw the hardest punch. It's about who can outthink, outlast, and outsmart their opponent when it matters most. The bell rings, and the crowd erupts. Tyson, despite his usual fearsome reputation, approaches the center of the ring with a noticeable caution. His eyes, usually filled with an unwavering intensity, are now searching, calculating, maybe even second-guessing. This wasn't the Tyson that the world had come to know, the one who would charge out of his corner with the speed of a lion on a hunt. No, this was a Tyson who seemed to be thinking, perhaps for the first time in his career, about the dangers that lay before him. Billy Graham, on the other hand, remained unshaken. Calm and composed, he moved with the kind of measured precision that only a veteran could display. As Tyson lunged forward with his classic quick jab, Graham expertly sidestepped, using Tyson's momentum against him. The crowd gasped in unison, unsure if they were witnessing the birth of a legend or the end of an era. Tyson's punches, while powerful, seemed more wild now, as if his opponent's calm demeanor was starting to frustrate him. But this was just the beginning. As the first round drew to a close, the unexpected twist that nobody saw coming began to unfold. Tyson, for all his power and skill, seemed to be losing his rhythm. His punches were slower, his footwork clumsier. Graham, meanwhile, was getting more and more comfortable in the ring, using his intelligence and experience to control the pace. He wasn't just avoiding Tyson's attacks, he was studying him, picking apart his moves like a chess player analyzing the next best move. The way Graham moved, it was as if he had already seen this fight before and knew exactly how to manipulate every moment. The crowd, initially hyped up with the expectation of a quick knockout, began to murmur. Tyson, the champion who had never faced a challenge he couldn't overpower, was now being forced into a mental game that he wasn't prepared for. He was starting to show signs of frustration, his usual confidence replaced with uncertainty. As the second round began, it was clear that the fight was no longer about Tyson's power. This was a battle of wills. Would Tyson's brute force overcome Graham's tactical brilliance, or would the champion's own mind betray him under pressure? Suddenly, an unexpected event shocked everyone in the arena. Just as Tyson threw one of his notorious hooks, something strange happened. Graham, anticipating the punch, ducked under Tyson's arm, but not without a slight stumble. For a split second, Tyson's eyes caught something, a fleeting moment of vulnerability in his opponent's stance. Fueled by pure instinct, Tyson saw an opening. With the raw fury that only a champion could summon, he lunged forward and landed a punch. But instead of a clean hit, the punch grazed Graham's temple. The impact was jarring, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow down. Graham was shaken. His legs buckled briefly, but his determination never wavered. He stumbled back, but his eyes never left Tyson. The audience gasped, uncertain of what they had just witnessed. Was this the moment Tyson had been waiting for? Was this the beginning of the end for Graham? But in the same breath, something else was happening. The brief moment of vulnerability had somehow shaken Graham's resolve, and yet it seemed to ignite a fire in him. The next few seconds were a whirlwind. Graham's counterattacks, previously calculated and slow, now came with a newfound speed and intensity. It was as if he had just unlocked a deeper layer of strategy, something Tyson wasn't ready for. And Tyson? He was starting to backpedal. His once unstoppable offense was now more desperate, more erratic. The crowd could hardly keep up with the unfolding chaos. The tension in the air was palpable. Each round seemed to shift the momentum further and further away from Tyson's favor. Graham wasn't just surviving. He was forcing Tyson into uncomfortable territory, making him fight a fight he wasn't used to. And then, just when it seemed like Tyson was regaining some control, something happened that no one could have predicted. A brief exchange of punches, and Tyson stepped back, holding his ribs in pain. The referee immediately noticed Tyson wincing, his breath coming in short, ragged bursts. Was this a result of the constant pressure Graham was applying? Had the relentless mental game and strategic footwork finally taken its toll? As the referee raised Graham's hand in victory, there was a moment of silence, a rare, almost sacred pause in the world of boxing. Tyson, still on the mat, looked up at the lights above, his chest heaving with breath. His face was a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. The world had believed he was unbeatable. But in that moment, Tyson wasn't just a defeated champion. He was a man who had been humbled, who had learned that even the greatest warriors have their limits. For Graham, the victory wasn't just about the title. It was about proving that boxing wasn't just about power. It was about intelligence, resilience, and understanding the opponent in ways that few could. As Graham stood in the ring, he allowed himself a brief smile, not out of arrogance, but out of quiet respect for the journey he had taken to get here. He had faced the most dangerous boxer in history and had found a way to outthink, outlast, and finally outfight him. As Tyson left the ring, escorted by his team, the crowd couldn't help but feel a mixture of admiration and sympathy. They had witnessed something extraordinary, not just in terms of Graham's performance, but in Tyson's response. He was a champion who had been dethroned not by a stronger opponent, but by the very elements he had ignored throughout his career: strategy, patience, and the mental game. The aftermath of the fight lingered in the air for weeks. Boxing analysts and fans debated Tyson's future. Was this the end of his reign, or could he rise again? Some believed that Tyson's pride would keep him in the game, while others thought that this loss might be the wake-up call he needed. For Billy Graham, however, the victory was a moment of clarity. He had proven that a true champion was not defined by sheer power, but by the ability to adapt and overcome. His win wasn't just about taking down Tyson. It was about showing the world that the mind could be as mighty as the fist. In the end, Tyson and Graham's story became more than just a fight. It became a reflection on the nature of greatness. Tyson, for all his power, had fallen because he had underestimated the value of the mental aspect of boxing. Graham, for all his modesty and calculated strategy, had shown that strength wasn't always measured in raw force. Sometimes it was the quiet warriors, the ones who took the time to understand their opponent, who came out on top. This fight, this stunning upset, would go down as one of the most unforgettable moments in the sport's history, a reminder that every fighter, no matter how invincible they seem, has their breaking point. And as for Billy Graham, he had achieved the impossible. He had shown that, in the world of boxing, sometimes the greatest victory is not the one everyone expects, but the one that takes the entire world by surprise. Tyson's fans, who had been cheering him on since the first bell, now started to murmur among themselves. Something wasn't right. They could see it. Tyson was beginning to slow down. The once untouchable champion had become a target for every counter-strike Graham could muster. As the rounds dragged on, the idea that Tyson could lose this fight began to feel more and more possible. And yet, Tyson's pride, his ego, was still very much in play. In the fifth round, he launched a ferocious uppercut, aimed to finish Graham once and for all. But Graham, now operating on a different level of awareness, read the move before it even happened. With a sharp turn, he slipped under the punch, rolling behind Tyson's back, and delivered a swift blow to Tyson's ribs. The crowd was stunned. Tyson, visibly in pain, staggered to regain his footing. This was the moment. Tyson, the feared knockout artist, was now on the back foot, his power neutralized by a fighter who understood the importance of not just strength, but control. Tyson's dominance in the ring was slipping away, and Billy Graham's calm precision was taking over. The narrative was shifting in real time. What was once a one-sided match had now turned into a genuine contest. But as the bell rang for the 6th round, Tyson's eyes hardened. Despite all that had happened, despite the pain and the mental warfare Graham had subjected him to, Tyson was not ready to surrender. The real question now was this: could he find it within himself to rally and reclaim his title, or was this truly the end of the line for the once great champion? The tension was unbearable. What would Tyson do next? Could he recover, or was Billy Graham about to pull off one of the most shocking upsets in boxing history? The bell rang, signaling the start of the 7th round, and the atmosphere in the arena was electric, charged with a tension that seemed to reach a breaking point. Tyson, visibly battered and struggling, seemed to have an inner battle brewing. His pride as the heavyweight champion was being tested in ways he had never imagined. Every move he made, every punch he threw, seemed to come slower than before. And yet, in those few moments of doubt, a flicker of the old Tyson sparked in his eyes. Maybe it was the weight of his legacy, or maybe it was pure instinct, but something in him refused to quit. Graham, on the other hand, was more focused than ever. His strategy had taken Tyson deep into unfamiliar territory, and with every round, he appeared to be gaining confidence. His jabs were quick, his footwork fluid, and his eyes never strayed from his opponent's every move. But as Graham pressed forward, the unexpected happened. Tyson, desperate but relentless, unleashed a series of hooks and uppercuts that forced Graham to retreat. The audience roared as Tyson, in a final act of defiance, pushed through his pain, showing a glimpse of the ferocity that had made him a legend. But just as quickly as Tyson's momentum surged, it faltered again. Graham, still composed, had seen the shift in Tyson's energy, and he wasn't fooled by the sudden burst of aggression. He knew that Tyson's power was fading, and this was his moment to capitalize. With a sharp feint to the left, Graham maneuvered around Tyson's tired attempts to land a knockout blow. In that instant, Tyson's overexertion caught up with him, and Graham launched a final calculated strike. It wasn't the hardest punch, but it was the one that counted. A precise right hook to Tyson's temple, delivered with the kind of precision that had been building up for the entire fight. Time seemed to slow down. Tyson staggered backward, his legs buckling beneath him. The crowd, who had been roaring moments before, fell silent. Tyson's body crashed to the canvas with a resounding thud. His eyes fluttered, and for the first time in his career, the mighty Mike Tyson was down for the count. The referee began the count, but Tyson was unable to rise. The bell rang, signaling the end of the fight, and the arena erupted into disbelief. Billy Graham had done the unthinkable. He had beaten the invincible Mike Tyson,